On to another crime story. We've been following the Whitey Bulger trial, and now for the latest. It was an intensely emotional day in federal court as family members of James Whitey Bulger's alleged victims took the stand. Their testimony left at least one juror in tears, but even so, it's not clear how much Bulger's defense team really accomplished. Adam Riley was there and joins me now.
Hey, Emily.
Welcome. So these were the victims.
Family members of Bulger's alleged victims, yeah.
And you said one of them, Diane Sussman, was particularly emotional.
Diane Sussman, who now is the married name of Diane Sussman de Tenon, she was incredibly powerful. She started off the morning, talked about being in a car that was basically just hit because they happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. John Martirano, Bulger's associate, and allegedly Bulger himself were trying to track down another sort of hood crook, Al Notarangeli. And they mistook this car that Diane Sussman was riding in for Notarangeli's car. The driver of the car, Michael Milano, was killed after it was riddled with bullets. Diane Sussman's boyfriend at the time, a guy named Louis Lapiana, he was in the car and he was paralyzed from the neck down. She was hit in the arm. She didn't even realize it initially, but she was hit. She was okay. But her testimony, she talked about how she broke off her relationship with her ex after he was paralyzed, but remained close to him. They both ended up in California. She would take him out in a wheelchair. She learned how to clean out his respirator. His parents, she said, became like surrogate grandparents for her children. Very powerful stuff. She was struggling not to cry. Her voice was breaking frequently. There was at least one juror, a woman, who was weeping and wiping away tears as this went on. Maybe a second. Reports have varied, and it all started with her. We saw this picture of a very vital-looking young man, and the attorney said, "Do you recognize that?" And she said, "Oh yeah, that's Louis. It was Louis before his life was ruined."
But when they asked her, "Do you know who shot you?"
That's exactly right. They said that when the defense had a chance to cross-examine her, they were very gentle, because you have to be tricky here. Yeah. This woman's gone through a tragedy. The defense said, "Do you know who shot the car that day?" And she said, "No, I don't." And they pressed a little bit. Who do you believe shot the car that day? She said, "Well, I think I know, but I'm not going to say it because that would be speculation." Exactly. And now Martirano has said he did, in fact, shoot up the car. The question is, was Bulger part of it? And that testimony, as powerful as it was, didn't, to my eye, establish that Bulger was the driving force.
And now there's a second guy, this Ralph DeMasi, which is no relation, is spelled differently.
D-E-M-A-S-I. And this guy was, it's funny that, there was more intense sadness at the beginning of the day than I'd seen at the trial up until today. And then there was more laughter when this guy, Ralph DeMasi, took the stand. The prosecution forced him to testify. He was a serial felon. He just finished this year a 21-and-a-half-year term in prison. Oh. He was only testifying because the court ordered him to. He didn't want to have any part of it. He hates the government, hates the idea of helping the government. And he was this sort of like surly grandpa type figure who basically the defense took him and used him as a contrast to John Martirano, Bulger's associate, who's cooperating with the government. And the defense turned him into a poster child for everything that's wrong with the criminal justice system. J.W. Carney said, "Sir, you spent 21-and-a-half years in prison and you didn't kill anyone, did you?" He said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Well," and now Martirano's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone remembers Martirano did 12 years in prison for killing 20 people. And at the end of his testimony, he went off on this big soliloquy that couldn't have been scripted any better if the defense had been able to script it, about how, the system is broken, you kill 20 people, and you agree to testify, and you can walk. So the jury, those of us in the gallery were kind of chuckling at points, but it was
kind of a random. He really had nothing to do with the case.
Thank you for asking that. I actually should have made that clear. He was in a car which was shot up by Martirano again. The guy driving the car was another small-time hood, William O'Brien, who Martirano and allegedly Bulger had wanted to kill. He died. DeMasi didn't. He lived to tell. He talked about jumping out of the car and brandishing his stiletto and making the guys who shot him run away. A real character, and I think really did make the government look pretty bad.
Wow. All right, Adam Riley, thanks for that great report.
Thanks, Emily.